Your favorite casino games are just a few taps away. Find FanDuel Casino right inside your FanDuel Sportsbook app. Join FanDuel Casino today to play your first 24 hours risk-free and get up to $200 back on anything you lose.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Kyle Kalinske sent me something today. I wanted you to see, Jamie. It's there's some shit going down with UFO sightings.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been
before.
Well, yeah,
I
but
don't know that they were new.
Here, I'll send it. I'll send it to you.
I've been following this stuff.
Yeah, it's hold on a second, Jamie. All right, I just texted it to you. Pentagon officially releases UFO. This is the tweet. Pentagon formally released 3 mysterious UFO videos captured by Navy pilots. The already leaked videos showed what DoD insists on calling unidentified aerial phenomena, moving at incredible speeds and performing near impossible maneuvers. This is a weird subject because it's one of those subjects where people automatically dismiss it because it's been so touted by kooks. There's so many wacky fucks that have talked about UFOs that anybody talking about UFOs has to be out of their fucking mind. But then when you see these videos and you see them performing these impossible tasks, like these things are moving in a way that we've never seen anything move before. Flipping upside down and sideways, moving at insane rates of speed.
I got my Al Bundy going on right now.
Like, they don't know what these are.
Yeah.
Aerial phenomena.
What's interesting, though, is I was reading one of these stories, and they passively mentioned that the sighting was near a U.S. naval technology station of some sort, like a top secret development. And I'm like,
that could be one of two things: either it's developed by the people that are at that base, or they're monitoring the people that are at that base. These aircraft, we call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory nor any foreign inventory that we are aware of. Maybe they see the shit that's going down with China and all the ships being moved and like, listen, you fuckheads.
The aliens?
Yeah. Maybe they're like, listen, you fucking morons, you territorial apes.
I'd like to think that, but...
my Facebook's going crazy right now.
I mean, the U.S. has probably got some crazy motherfucking weapons.
Could be, but the Manhattan Project was also, coincidentally, right after they started detonating bombs when the aliens started showing up.
That's what they think, right?
Yeah, well, that was when the bulk of U.S. sightings started jumping. And worldwide, I believe, too.
Maybe we've slowly been getting more and more information about this. I've been actually reading a lot of these stories over the past several months.
The UFO shit is back,
more release of documents, and more sightings. So there's been a big, I don't want to call it, well, a lot of people murmuring that April was going to be the month when we finally learn the truth. April's almost up.
It's almost up.
It's almost up.
We got like a few days.
Nah, man.
The 27th?
You know what I used to...
more days is left.
Do you know...
30?
You know about what happened? Do you know about the O'Hare Airport sighting?
Which one's that?
So this was, I think, in like 2006 at Chicago's International O'Hare. A UFO came down and hovered above. I remember
that.
Which terminal it was. It hovered for a few minutes, and then shot straight, punched a hole in the clouds.
Yeah.
Everybody saw it happen. Now
And then that was at an American airport, and then like that same week, or it was a week before or a week after that, or maybe even the same week, there was something at some kind of strange sighting at a Japanese airport of some weird craft. But I like listening to the UFO stuff, but I really, really do think it's just some deep black projects.
Just quit working at O'Hare on this time when the sighting happened. So I had friends who were still there. I had a friend tell me that when this UFO came down, people on Mannheim Road, which is the road on the side of O'Hare, got out of their cars, like just stopped the light, got up, and were looking and staring at it. And that the people who were working, where we worked for American Eagle Airlines, walked out of the rooms and were just staring at it float and then shoot up and punch a hole in the clouds. And you know what they said? Weather phenomenon. So there's a photo of it. A pilot took a photo of it. This is back when, like, very early phone cameras, so it's a very grainy, awful picture.
There it is right there.
That's not it. No, that's super fake. I think, no, these are all people trying to fake it. It's really hard to find. That one is not, that one might be it, but I don't think so. It barely looks like
Chicago
anything.
O'Hare UFO sighting 2006. Is that it
Yeah.
right there?
I do not believe those are it, no. So,
We'll click on that article. See what it says, Jamie.
that one might be on the left. But so many people try exploiting this stuff for clicks and for views, and they make these fake photos. And
That link's not working?
I'll click on it a few times.
it was a very, very faint photo from the cockpit. It might be that one right there in the middle. On the left side.
Far left?
It might be that
Oh.
one. No, that's not it. That's not it. Well, there was a really crappy photo of it, and
That might be it.
that might be. It was out of the cockpit of a window. A pilot took a photo, and I wonder where have all the sightings gone since phones became ubiquitous. I mean, this is a simple, I guess excuse. The aliens, they're sentient. They know we have phones. They're like, okay, stop, decloaking or whatever. But I wonder if, why is it there were so many UFOs and around the time cell phone cameras come out, they're gone.
Well, I think most people are full of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people like to pretend they see things that don't really see things. But I don't think that excludes the possibility. It's not like it's not like these things are mutually exclusive. Like people are full of shit, therefore aliens don't exist. I think aliens could be real and people are full of shit. And I think that it's very rare that they visit us. But if they
Why
do,
would they?
how often do scientists go to the Congo to study chimps? I mean, how many people do they send
Let me-
to the bottom of the ocean to look for new life forms? How rare is it?
Let me trip you out
Okay.
on that idea. We put decoys up for animals. Animals can't tell the difference. What if you've actually met a decoy person? You couldn't tell the difference.
Maybe it's you, bro.
Maybe it's me. That's right.
And that's why you're able to work so much.
Oh yeah,
You
robot.
don't get tired.
No.
So you're interested in news and disseminating factual evidence.
Because what we're actually doing is collecting a database for the aliens. No, but I thought about this because I saw a photo on Reddit of a puffin, I think it's called, the bird, and they put up a fake puffin, and it's because I think they're called puffins. It's because the birds don't like nesting in places where they're alone, and so by putting the decoy there, the other birds would start coming, and like one bird showed up and was hanging out with the decoy, and I'm like, could you imagine you see we put duck decoys in the water, we do duck calls, and the duck's like, ooh, hey, fly honey, I'm gonna come over and check this out, and it's like a wood block. Could you imagine seeing a beautiful woman or someone you're attracted to and being like, ooh, look at that, and it's really like an alien decoy just to probe you and better understand you or something?
Well, the decoy, just the term decoy is weird because decoys are used for hunting. Like turkey, it's turkey season right now.
Yeah.
And the way most guys hunt for turkeys, they take a rubber turkey. You put that fucker out in the middle of the field, and then you hide behind a bush with a shotgun. You go, and then the
Right.
turkeys hear it, and they come over and they try to get some pussy, and then they get shot.
So what if you see some dude and or it's like you see it for you, it's behind you, beautiful woman, you want to get that pussy, and and then she's going like, hey, come over here, and you're like, oh, hey, me, and
And
then
then I get eaten.
no, they just take it from the ship, probe you, and learn about your butt.
This is the thing about putting things up your butt.
I'm
Most
just kidding,
doctors
man.
don't even do that. They have MRIs now. Don't aliens need to probe you in your ass? I think it's just what everyone's afraid of. They're afraid of things going in their ass, so that's what they think is going to happen if the aliens get them. They're going to freeze me and touch my ass.
Somebody
Ooh.
told a dumb story back in the day, and it was the most sensational version. Everybody had to have it, so they were like, that's what they went with,
Maybe, or maybe they do that to keep your mouth shut. They
Or-
fuck you in the ass just so you keep your mouth shut.
Or some dude actually got abducted, right?
Yeah.
And he comes back, and he's like, they think they won against me. They think they beat me. They put stuff up my butt. They're weirdos.
Do you ever hear
They're
the
weirdos, not
story
me.
of Betty and Barney Hill?
No.
It's the very first UFO abduction story. It's an ancient story. And what's crazy is Angela Hill, who's a UFC fighter, asked. And after the show, she told me her grandpa was Barney Hill.
Whoa.
And I was like, holy fuck. Like, we didn't talk about it during the show, but she wanted to bring it up because she knows I'm kind of obsessed with UFOs. But the account that they have, like, they get hypnotized and he's recalling the abduction, and they have, like, the same story. It's very terrifying. You hear him crying and screaming, and, you know, that he was taken aboard this craft and examined and brought back, and they have missing time. But here's the thing. If they only did that occasionally, if they only came down once every few years and just scooped some person up in the middle of some rural place, like if you're flying over, you know, I think their instance was I believe it was in Maine. If you're flying over somewhere like Maine, which is a very low population state, and you see a lone car, and it's just traveling along the highway, and there's places in Maine where you go from like Portland to Bangor. When you're traveling on that road, it's like 60 miles with nothing, not a gas station, nothing. If you were an alien and you saw a car by itself, like, no other car, let's move in, we got one.
Isn't it just easier to think it's the U.S. government?
No.
Why not?
Because we don't have the capability of doing something like that. I don't think the capability of the scientists working for the government is any different than the capability of the scientists that are working for, you know, Project X, or, you know, fill in the blanks in terms of, like, what Raytheon, publicly traded companies.
How long? Look, quadcopters don't seem all that complicated to me. Right?
Quadcopters.
Yeah, like
helicopters,
like drones. You know, we've seen the little drone toys you buy. They got 4 propellers. Take that concept, use thinner, you know, jets, and surround it in a disc so that it's, you know, universally, like, it can move in any direction because it's got, you know, because it's
what
omnidirectional.
power source? Where's the gas tank?
Well, lithium-ion battery, or
come on, man. You're talking space shit. Like, this hasn't even been invented yet. Think about how little mileage you can get out of a Tesla.
You know, they had
as
no.
advanced as Tesla is.
You know,
still, when it's going full out, it can only go for. I mean, you get 307 miles if you drive like a grandma, but if you drive like a maniac, you don't even get half that.
You know that they, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that they had this flying platform in the 70s that uses gas power. And they've also had jetpacks for a long time.
No, they've had, sort of. They've had jetpacks that are capable of going for like 30 seconds. They don't, I've experienced
No, I'm pretty sure the jetpacks back in the day went for a long time.
No, they definitely didn't.
We can look it up.
Yeah, let's look it up. The whole thing was the fact they were burning gas. And to propel you in the air, they only had a certain amount.
I thought it was like 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes.
Maybe now.
My understanding of why we abandoned jetpack technology was that it was inefficient and heavy, and you couldn't carry it without it being turned on. So they opted for larger, like, you know, like, what are they called? Chinooks, helicopters that can carry multiple people at once. When you're wearing a jetpack, it has to be on idle, negating its own weight, which means it's burning as you're walking around, which means you get a good 20-minute jump and you got to abandon the tech. And then you don't want your enemies to get it.
Have you ever seen a guy fly a jetpack?
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube.
No, I mean in real life.
Oh, I've seen that one guy, the Iron Man dude.
Well,
not in real life.
I've been there in real life. My friend Willie B from in Denver on the radio.
Yeah.
He had a radio show in the morning. I used to do his radio show. I think he still has a radio show. Shout out to Willie. And he had this guy who was a jetpack pilot who came in the parking lot of the radio studio, and, you know, fans of the radio show came and did it too, and watched it rather. And this guy flew in the air for about 15, 20 seconds and then landed. This guy was so banged up. Both of his legs were blown apart. He had big braces on both of his knees. I'm like, what happened to your knees? He's like, just crash landing. Both my knees are blown to shit. He had no ACLs in either one of his knees. But
well, that's what I'm saying.
It's good for, but this is back then. It was good for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds of flying.
Well, so the point I was trying to get to is if you take something like a quadcopter, you could absolutely fuel it with you know, gas or
whatever. It'd be loud as fuck.
But it would depending on how you mitigate
the noise. It'd be an engine.
Yeah.
It'd be loud as fuck.
And you'd hear from the quad rotors.
Yeah, but what these people are describing is nothing like that. These people are describing things that are silent, that go from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in a split second. The things that defy physics as we understand them. Yeah. This is not something that I think that the U.S. government has. If you look at like Elon Musk company, Project X or SpaceX. SpaceX is right now one of the premier civilian companies, private companies that's making rocket ships. They fuck up all the time.
Totally.
They're in the middle of innovating all the time. He's one of the smartest people on earth. He's one of in terms of technology, he knows as much about propulsion as anyone, and they still can't get it right. They're still trying to figure it out. They're trying to come up with something that could be viable in terms of commercial space flight, and they're working on it daily. And these people are the brightest minds we know of right now. They're in this jet propulsion space travel business. There's, Virgin's working on something. There's a couple other companies that are working on things as well. And then you have NASA, which worked, the best they could come up with was the space shuttle.
Right.
Do you think that there was something way better than space shuttle that they just never used? That they had, and they kept it on the back burner, didn't want to let anybody know, but the way they would use it is they would pick people up and erase their memory and toy with their asshole? That's crazy.
Well,
That's less likely than the hundreds of billions of galaxies just in our own known universe, right? Each one with hundreds of billions of stars. Each star with who knows how many fucking planets. That's somewhere out there that's something more advanced than us. Maybe 1,000 years, maybe 1,000,000 years.
But
that's figured out how to come here.
I got the same question then. Why hasn't anyone discovered them? Why has SETI failed? Search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Why haven't the chimps invented guns?
They've started using more tools, but
Right. Why haven't they invented guns though?
I don't know.
So why hasn't SETI found UFOs? It's the same fucking answer. They're not advanced enough yet. It's a real simple answer. The industrial age is pretty fucking recent.
Right.
I mean, you think about when people invented cars. You're talking about 1800. That's really recent.
And we've only
Plane
used
flights, 1800s.
high power radio transmission is only in the past 100 years or so.
Right. Well, you ever seen the movie Contact?
Maybe.
What-
It's an
what-
old one, right?
It's Jodie Foster.
Contact was a really good movie.
It's based on Carl Sagan's book about contact with space and with
And I like
aliens, how it's
listening to
gonna
Carl
go.
I think I
Sagan.
did
What
see
up,
it
what up,
recently.
guys?
Interesting take on it. But
Oh,
the
yeah,
idea
wait,
is that they've received the signal that we sent out way back, in the day. Actually, when the first broadcast signal was Hitler announcing the Olympic Games, the start of the Berlin
wow.
Games. This is the
Um,
first signal they got. There's a really
As you can see, I hate doing core workouts, and this quarantine got me eating all kind of snacks and shit, bruh. I see all that sugar and fat, like that shit is building up fast as shit. I'm getting older, my metabolism is slowing down, so I'm starting to get this shit like fast as fuck. And I already hate doing core workouts. So what I do is the basic shits. Well, the first shits we learned, bro. Some sit-ups and some crunches. Do really short crunches. I try to do 5 and hold the 5th one for like 5 seconds, 3-4 seconds. Do 5, hold it. Do 5 and hold it. And then you do your fucking you put your knees into it with your sit-ups. And then you do fucking leg raises where you lay flat on your back and you fucking just raise your legs up and down. You can hold that shit. There used to be a punishment called 6 inches. You lay down, gotta hold your feet up 6 inches. You know what I'm saying? And do that shit. That helps. Your crunches and your sit-ups are gonna work the upper parts of your abdomen. And when you bring your legs into it, you're going to focus on the lower parts here, pulling your legs up. So do that, and that's all I really been doing, bro. Some fucking leg raises, some knee raises, some crunches, and some sit-ups, push-ups. Gotta figure out. I got a dip bar and a pull-up bar. I just need to set it up. It's too big for my basement, so I'm gonna have to set it up outside. Definitely want to do some dips to keep the triceps together, and do some curls and some dumbbell press. It's not a lot, bro. Like nobody was prepared for the gyms to shut down. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you have like a small place, or if you got, a big family, you don't have place for workout equipment and shit like that. Is like, fuck. So now I'm trying to scramble just trying to put little shit together my damn self. I really, really want to get a weight bench. Hate to buy something new. I've been looking like on Let Go and Facebook Market and shit like that, seeing if I can find somebody with a decent bench they want to let go for like 50 or $60 or some shit like that. But it's tough. It's even tough just getting motivated to work out at home. It's weird, you know. I just got to get reaccustomed to that shit because I worked out from home for years, and until I started. I've had a gym membership for 5 years now, and you get used to all the different equipment and everything at the gym, and then plus seeing other people working out, that kind of just motivates you in itself. Just being around other people doing the same thing. If you're a chef and you go inside a kitchen where a bunch of people are cooking, you're like, you get excited. Or if you're an artist and you go into a paint studio and people are painting, you get excited. You know what I'm saying? And if you're ready to work out and you go somewhere, like everybody's working out, it's like, yeah, you know. So that shit is it's just different. Like I say, just trying to stay motivated, and then trying to figure out exercises where you can use your own physical weight, just your weight in itself. Did I get paint on me like that? What is? Oh, that's chocolate. It's chocolate. Um, but yeah, trying to do stuff to just use your own body mass and your own weight. Uh, Push-ups. If you have, you can get like some chairs, 2 chairs, and do some dips, squats. Find something that you can pull-ups on, crunches. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of exercises you just use your own body. You don't really need equipment or weights, and it works pretty good. You know what I'm saying? For the, if you're not trying to have like some super lean chiseled ass beach body, if you just want to stay limber, keep your bones from cracking and keep your muscles and everything loose, so you don't get cramps and all kind of Charlie horses and shit, and just still keep your strength up and just do like a little regular routine. Yo, what up? What up? What up, Daft? Yeah, you like I say, if you hype about something and nobody else is hype about it, it's hard to stay like self motivated. And you know, self motivation is a very significant key in anyone's life. You know what I'm saying? No matter what you're doing, you know what I'm saying? And that's like some jobs, especially sales jobs. That's what they say. We're looking for a self-motivated individual. Like, man, because we're not going to motivate you, bro. You got to get out there and do that shit yourself. I was like, fuck. You know how hard that is? You know how hard it is to motivate self? You just got to talk to self and be like, self, huh? You got this. But do we really? Do we really got this? Yes, definitely. Go ahead, do it, do it. All right, I'm gonna do it. Go ahead, go ahead. And see, and then it's that conversation. You gotta drink more water too, man. Like I say, just a little bit of shit, that little bit of sugars and extra fats that's in your diet. Cause I'm still buying snacks. Fuck that. Still got me some Doritos and Oreos, but I ain't doing as much physical exercise as I normally do, yo. So that shit add up fast. Word up, dude. That's what it is, Sean. I'm a victim. My motivation was stolen. You know? Because ain't nobody else gonna do this shit, bro. Know what I'm saying? I try to motivate myself a lot of the time, but you know what? You guys are my motivation. Keeps me going. Keeps me energized. You know? You gotta keep up with the shits, man. When ain't nobody else doing it. Especially when nobody else is doing it and you do it. That's how you shine. Because everybody recognize like, oh, he over there doing something that we're not doing. I should do that. Fuck, it's too late. He already did it. Shit. Them core exercises though, bruh, I hate that shit, man. I don't know why I hate working on my stomach, yo. I used to have such a nice stomach when I was younger. I got this one picture that I saved, man, and my six pack was just like, bow. Boy, that shit was like, ooh, shit. Nigga, like a washboard. You can wash a pair of jeans on that shit. But now, that shit look like a dinner roll. Like, I be trying to flex that shit hard as hell. Nothing. I mean, it's kind of solid, but that definition, that shit is gone away with yesteryear. And I like last year or the year before last, I tried to work hard on that shit, yo, to get my abs back. I gave up the struggle. I still work on my core. I don't try to go crazy on that shit, yo. I said I already tried to go crazy on none of my strength training. Like, I haven't maxed out in a couple years, but right before the gym closed, I was benching I was doing 2 sets of 5 of 255. It's pretty good for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't weigh 255. But I benched that shit 5 times. Bam, 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 bam. So I'm thinking like, on my max, I could probably max like 285, something like that. You know, most people be like, oh, I gotta get 300 on the bar and all this shit, man. Yo, as long as I'm strong enough to knock a motherfucker out, that's all I really need, bro. That's all I really need. That knockout power. You don't gotta be super strong and super big and all bulky and buffed up for that shit, bro. Can you defend yourself? Can you put a nigga headlock? Can you get a good grip on the motherfucker? Can you throw a nice jab? Or at least a close ass rabbit? That motherfucker get knocked out, bro. You wanna walk up in my face? Bow! 45 pounds of pressure per square inch, bro. And now since, like I said, I'm at home, I got dumbass dumbbells, yo. Dumb dumbbells. I got a set of 10-pound dumbbells, and then I got a set of 45-pound dumbbells, and then I got a set of 60-pound dumbbells. Like, that's not a good goddamn variety of goddamn weights, man. You know how little shit I can do with those fucking Joes, man? I bet they try to curl a 45-pound dumbbell, bruh. Bruh, that shit is too much, man. I don't need to be trying to curl damn near 50 pounds, bro. I don't need to curl that much. But I ain't got shit else to work with right now. So I say at least once a week, I'll be on Facebook Market trying to see workout equipment, or weight bench, or weights, trying to see who giving up some shit. I'm gonna have to break down and just buy some new shit, which I don't mind. I'm just so frugal nowadays, and plus all these discount sites like OfferUp and Let Go and Facebook Market and Craigslist, and you can find some alright shit for the low. Most of my shit is secondhand. A lot of shit I have secondhand. Shit. Got that keg. I say that shit's solid though. I'm gonna take a punch. I take a few punches. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna like knock me out and beat me all up and shit. And I ain't gonna let you do that. Goddamn. Even if you do win, it ain't gonna just be all simple. I may get a little soft or some shit, but let's not get soft during the quarantine. I actually might try to, like, when this shit is over, I don't know, take like some light boxing classes or kickboxing or something. I haven't done that shit in a whole fucking lifetime now. Talking about throwing the punch, be thinking like, when the last time you hit somebody, nigga, for real? When you really hit somebody last? Well, it's been years since I had to hit a motherfucker. Yo, like, can I still throw a punch? Better take my ass to goddamn gym, a boxing gym. Them dumbbells come in handy, bro. Even especially if you don't have a bench, you can get it in with dumbbells. You really can. I'm definitely looking for a bench though. I need a weight bench, yo. I like the bench, yo, and I want a curl bar. I see a dude. I actually offered a dude. I think he wanted like $100 or $110 for a curl bar, and he got like 25-pound plates, and he got 35-pound plates. I was like, man, I give you $85 for that shit. I like to haggle, you know what I'm saying? And he ain't never responded to that shit. But that's how I'm just pick up pieces slowly as I can, yo. Especially if you get a nice, cause he got a nice, it is a nice curl bar. I might give him the buck, whatever he want for that shit, yo. If I get that fucking a nice ass curl bar, get some different weight sets and the dumbbells, get a bench, and with the bench, all you need really is like 200 pounds of weight. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. Because all you gotta do is just do high ass reps. Like I say, I can bench 255, but if I don't have them extra 55 pounds of weight on the bench, like, I just do more fucking reps. You know what I'm saying? I say that 255, that shit heavy hitter. I do that shit like 4 or 5 times, twice. If I had like at least 185 on the bench or something like that, I can do like 5 sets of 12 or some shit. You know, and still get in a good ass pump that way without, just lower weights, higher reps. Gotta get them 5 rounds. I smoke too much, bro. You smoke too much too, man. You talking about 5 rounds. This nigga be ready for a blunt halfway through the first round. Ho, yo. All right, come on. Shit. Is it a Wednesday? Got 2 more days of work. Let's get it in on this painting, guys. Because I got to cook dinner tonight. I'm cooking some salmon and some rice, some asparagus, and some field peas. Yeah. I cooked some baked spaghetti the other day with some shrimp in that shit. Y'all don't even. I ain't gonna say no more. But that salmon and rice, asparagus, and some peas, that shit going down tonight, bro. Yes, sir. So we gotta get some time on the canvas real quick, so I can go get this meal prepared. I was thinking about that shit yesterday. I won't cook yesterday, but I had so much spaghetti left over. I was like, just have leftovers for dinner. You know what I'm saying? But eating that salmon and rice tonight, boy. Physical labor in a respirator. Yeah, I couldn't imagine, yo. Well, that's why I got like my respirators and shields and all my gear, cause I did that shit for years, man. We had a couple projects, yo. This one project was real bad, and it was that black mold shit, yo. I mean, like, what's that? What hurricane that was? I can't even remember the name of the hurricane, but some hurricane, man, fucked up a lot of shit down at the beach, yo. And it was like an office building, and the contractors they had come in there to repair that shit, man, they should have tore everything out, but they didn't. You know what I'm saying? They just like bleached some shit and motherfucking like changed a little bit of shit and painted over a lot of shit, yo. And then like a couple years after that shit, it was getting bad. People was getting sick in that shit, man. We went down there, we had to tear out the sheetrock, and it was like middle studs, how they framed out the offices and shit. And man, tearing the sheetrock off the wall, yo, man, yo, pull that bitch off. The back of that shit was completely black, like somebody painted that shit black, yo. Like what the fuck? And then you touch that shit, it was like, yo, that shit was like poison. But that shit, yo, was like some hazmat shit, yo. And then I remember we had to do some I had to paint a shower at the YMCA, yo. And we had to use this shit called, it was epoxy. It's this 2-part paint sealer. I don't know. It's used for like hospitals and showers and public areas like that. It's supposed to be like the easiest shit to clean, non-penetrable, so it won't hold germs and whatever. But man, yo, this shit was like some of the worst chemicals I've ever smelt in my fucking life. Even with the respirators on, bro. Like, the fumes was like burning your fucking eyes. I was like, yo, what the fuck? I couldn't take that shit, yo. It was terrible. It was terrible. Joe Rogan and his homie talking about UFOs and shit.
Moment in the movie or controversy, in the plot with that once they were trying to decipher the image that was being sent, they realized it was Hitler.
Yeah.
The first thing they see is a swastika, and they're like, "What the fuck is
They
this?"
sent it back to us.
And then they had to realize, oh no, this is the first image that we sent out to space. They wouldn't be able to understand the political or historical context of this. And
Well, so I got a few. There's a few issues I see in terms of aliens and Earth contact. Right, we are substantially more connected, in an evolutionary chain to ants than we are to any alien. So we can't communicate with them for the most part. We kind of can. We understand how they communicate. But when an ant sees a superhighway, this is someone else's quote. They don't think twice. So it's possible there are aliens that have superhighways right above us. We can't tell what it is. Same as a dog doesn't understand other than stay away from it. But one of the issues I think is often neglected in the conversation about aliens is we assume aliens would be on a very similar planet to us. We assume that they would have some kind of gaseous atmosphere, perhaps it's a liquid atmosphere, And one of the things that I would ask of a researcher, because I'm not the expert, is the fact that we have the proper balance of oxygen in the atmosphere to manipulate fire, which allows us to, separate elements and components and fuels, wouldn't exist on a planet without the same, atmosphere.
I can answer that really easily.
Yeah.
There's no known propulsion system for any of these crafts. These things are not using fire. They don't have a heat signal. They don't know what they are. They don't know how they work.
I don't mean propulsion. I mean
No,
the
that black
separation of
mold
elements.
ain't no fucking joke.
The manipulation
bro.
of elements,
That
right?
shit
So
ain't no joke.
we melt things and separate them and break them down.
They don't believe that that's how it works.
No, but I mean, like, how do you even start from? I'm sure there's an answer. Let's say you have a species that lives on a planet with no oxygen and has no access to fire. What energy, what dense energy source do they have that will allow them to manipulate matter?
Do you know the Bob Lazar story?
I do.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that he talked about when he first stopped working for Area S4 and the government was tapping his phones, and there's a lot that can be documented about him. There's a lot that can't be. But one of the things that he talked about was a thing called element 115.
Right.
That element 115 is this insanely dense element that they use to bend gravity. And that the way he described the way the propulsion system works, it's like putting a bowling ball in the center of a very soft mattress, and then all of the other mattress, all the rest of the mattress hanging around the intense mass of the bowling ball, and that this is how these incredibly advanced aliens from this other planet use. This is their propulsion system.
That was
they
from
use this.
it's from Star Trek, though. The concept of warp was around for a really long
I
time.
think the concept is based on Einstein's theory of gravity. I mean, this is the whole idea. If you could find something that could do that. But here's the thing. When Bob Lazar talked about this
Bob
in
Laser.
the late 80s, early 90s, this element didn't exist.
Right, now it does.
It wasn't proven until they did it in a particle collider. I believe it was 2013. So he was talking about this element far before it was, and he's apparently, this is the big rumor, he apparently had taken some of that from a lab, and through George Norrie, and was it George Norrie? Yes. They did some experiments on on television and showed that this stuff had made light and fog bend in a way that they couldn't describe.
He also didn't he also claim to see a small alien creature on his way out?
He said he saw something that was sitting down, but he doesn't know if it was a model that they were using, like if they had created something that was supposed to be the size of a thing that could fit in these crafts, because these crafts, he said, were designed for things that were far smaller than human beings.
I'm pretty sure in the initial interview he gave when he went public was that he saw an alien, and then later on changed it, saying, I don't know if it was maybe a model or a puppet.
Yeah, he said he thought he saw something sitting down and two people standing over it looking at it. He said he thought he saw an alien. But he's probably, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, he said it was literally for like a half a second. Like he's walking by a window and he sees something inside of it. Imagine a guy who's in your 20s and you're a propulsions expert, and it's been proven that he worked at Los Alamos Labs, and it's been proven that he did put a fucking jet engine. It's been proven that he did put a jet engine on a Honda. I mean, he's a genius. And then you talk to him, he's an incredibly smart guy. Now imagine you get sent off to Area S4, and they show you this thing that doesn't even exist, and they tell you about this propulsion method that they don't understand, and they say that they found this a long time ago in an archaeological dig, and they want you to back engineer it because you're a propulsions expert, and they're running out of options. They've been studying this for decades. No one knows what the fuck it is or how you can make it work. And then they do test flights with this thing. And then he tells his friends about these test flights. After he gets fired, you know how he got fired? Do you know the story about him getting fired?
He leaked it or something,
No, his wife was fucking her flight instructor.
Oh.
And so when his wife was fucking her flight instructor, they told him he couldn't work anymore. He's like, why not? Well, they were tapping his phone. Because when you have top secret clearance to work on UFOs, I guess they don't want your wife fucking her flight instructor, because then you're going to go crazy, and you have a lot of imbalance at home, right? So he doesn't know why. They don't tell him why. So he takes his friends and he tells them, listen, this is real. They're running these experiments. I know you're thinking I'm crazy. This is what I've been working on. So he takes them to this area where you used to be able to have access to, but once he did this, they closed off access and pushed it far back to where the public has access to. and he showed them these things doing these impossible maneuvers in the desert, in the night sky.
This I remember.
And so then he gets arrested. And so when he gets arrested, he was in fear of his own life. He goes public and tells this whole story. And then they erase his past, they erase his social security number, they erase his education background. Even though people that knew him and knew he worked at Los Alamos Labs, he takes George Norrie of a tour of Los Alamos Labs, knows the people that work there. They all say hi to him. He takes them on a tour around the laboratory.
Yeah.
Shows them around. Shows them the devices they use for biometric security. And
I think the one thing you can't ignore is that there was documentation that he did work at one of these places.
Yes.
And they later claimed he didn't.
Yes.
And like I think I was watching the thing on, maybe it was Netflix. I think like he promoted that, right? It was on Netflix. They showed the paper like we found it.
Yes.
Like he clearly was there.
He was in the employee registry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No.
But you know, for me, man, I'd love to believe it all.
He's been insanely consistent about that story.
Yeah.
For 40 years.
I want to believe. You know what I mean?
Or 30 years, whatever.
Yeah,
I want to believe too. That's the problem.
Man, Pixar
problem
didn't
is
happen.
I want to believe, but that's nonsense. Pixar didn't happen is nonsense.
Well,
how do you? What about Neanderthals?
No,
what about dinosaurs? There's no pics.
I'm more so joking, right? What I mean is, show me the evidence, right?
I get it.
Let's, the challenge with any theory. I don't like saying conspiracy theory because they're not always conspiracies. Is that people want something to be true, and so they end up looking for things to justify what they think it already is.
Of course.
Instead of starting with what you've got and trying to figure out where it goes from there.
But when you start with what you've got a guy who was living in Vegas, was taking these flights out to Area S4, knows the place, knows it inside out, can describe it very accurately. Also worked at Los Alamos Labs, describes that very accurately.
Right.
Yeah.
It proves he worked there.
Yeah. It
But
also proves he's also a legitimate scientist.
But what
when you talk to the guy, he's a brilliant guy. He's not a nut.
Right.
But what?
Are you saying aliens?
That doesn't mean aliens.
No, I'm just asking, like, so...
It doesn't mean aliens, but that's what he was told.
Right.
What he was told is, this is something that has come from somewhere else, and they're trying to figure out how to work it, how to use it.
What if we're in a simulation, and this was something that was leftover code, or it wasn't supposed to be placed in this certain iteration?
Or what if there's multiple dimensions that we don't have access to, and that these things do?
Wow. That shit was getting trippy. And that was only like a 20-minute segment from the whole episode. I didn't catch that guy's name, but Joe Rogan will do that. He'll just, clip a good portion of the conversation.
Your favorite casino games are just a few taps away. Find FanDuel
Why you always trying to
right
get people to
inside your
gamble,
FanDuel
though?
Sportsbook app.
Jessie May.
Rogan.
Good to see you.
Joseph
Rogan. Did she just call him Joseph? Never heard anybody call him Joseph before. Who is this? Jessie May Peluso? She doesn't look familiar to me. She might be a comedian. I'm not gonna listen to that. Joe Rogan was giving like Bob Lazar so much credit just now. I want to see. He's obviously had this dude on the show. Let's see. JREBOB Laser. And 10 months ago. This shit has 10 million views. Yo, Joe Rogan got the #1 podcast in America, yo.
2, 1, boom. And we're live. First of all, cheers, gentlemen. Let's have a little toast. Relax. Bob, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I understand that you've told this story many, many times. You've been grilled many, many times, and it's very stressful for you, so I really, really appreciate your time. For people who don't know the story, there's a documentary Jeremy Corbell has a documentary out right now. It's called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and UFOs.
And flying saucers.
And flying saucers.
Bob Lazar, Area 51 and flying saucers.
Okay. Yeah. I first heard your story decades ago. I told you last night when we went out to dinner, I've seen pretty much every interview you've ever given. I've followed the story incredibly closely. But for people who don't know the story, let's give them the bullet points. You used to work at Area 51. And Area 51, you went like, huh?
Well, we want to be accurate.
Okay.
Area S4.
S4. Okay.
It's about 15 miles south of Area 51.
Okay.
But,
you worked in how would you describe it?
I guess within the Area 51, you can call that a subset of was. At that time, it was 1982. I had put a jet engine in my Honda, and Los Alamos put it on the front page of the paper. Said, Los Alamos man, physicist at the lab, built this 200 mile an hour, Honda jet car that I drove to work every day. So I was known in Los Alamos, the guy with the weird car, and you could hear it from a mile away. Anyway, the day that came out on the front page of the paper was the day Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb, was giving a lecture down there at the lab. And we didn't have much going on that day in our group, and I asked if I could go down there. And I went down there early, and Ed Teller was outside, leaning on a brick wall there and reading the front page of the paper. Now, this is a guy out of history, so I introduced myself. Hey, I'm the guy you're reading about there. And we talked for a little while, and it was cool. Fast forward to years later, I had moved out to Las Vegas and had, left Los Alamos and, went on to other things. And I wanted to get back into the scientific community. I left to start other businesses and that sort of thing. So I sent resumes out, and one of them went out to Ed Teller and referenced our meeting, back in the day. And anyway, he remembered me and gave me a reference, somebody to contact at EG&G. And that's pretty much how it started.
So you get a phone call or a letter? Like, what do you get?
Well, I got what did I get? I got a letter initially, and went down for an interview probably a couple times, and it was down at EG&G Special Projects, which was at McCarran Airport at that time out in Las Vegas.
And did they give you any sort of job description, what you were applying for?
They said it was for, I can't remember exactly what they did. This was a long time ago, but I think it was advanced propulsion or something like that. Something relatively generic, and they said it's in a remote area. It's going to be some days on, some days off, and it was kind of it was kind of not exactly a full-time job, but you might have to be out there for 2 weeks at a time and take 2 weeks off. So it was kind of the work schedule would be kind of broken up.
And did this seem attractive to you, or did it seem weird?
No, it really wasn't weird, because people that work at the test site, anybody that's familiar with the area up there, working at the nuclear test site or at the Tonopah test range north of there, that's typically how things go.
So you had known about it from the scientific community? Because Area 51 at that time was
No, they didn't say anything about
classified.
Area 51.
Okay, so
they just said it was in a remote location, and you just know it was up at the test site.
Right.
So, but there was no mention of Area 51 at that time.
So they've done hundreds of nuclear tests in Nevada. That whole area there's giant chunks of Nevada that people.
Yeah, there's a big piece of Nevada, and it's split up into different areas. There's a nuclear test site. There's Area 51. There's the Tonopah test range north of that. There's little sub areas. There's areas where they test chemical weapons and things like that. So it's all broken up as a gigantic test area.
So take me back to first day on the job. You accept a job. They take you out there.
Yeah, it's the first day, really, I didn't really get to see a whole lot. The first day was essentially just paperwork. That's when I flew into Area 51 proper. And I left McCarran Airport and flew what they call the Janet flights. Just, you know, a passenger plane from Las Vegas to Area 51. And it was really just going through a mountain of paperwork that day. From security clearances to, God, it was like 2 or 3 hours of just solid paperwork. And that was really an uneventful first day.
When did things get weird? When did you realize, like at what point in time did you say, hey, this is not normal work? Like, this doesn't even seem like it's from this planet.
That, I can't tell you what day that occurred on because so much time has gone by, the days have kind of fused into one, and I can't separate the days.
Was it a slow burn, or was there a moment of recognition?
Well, the first inkling I had was when I came in. There's this facility that is at S4. It's in the side of a mountain. And normally we had pulled in with the bus and gone around the front through a normal double door. This time that I went in, there were hangar doors open. I went in through the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the disc, the flying saucer that I worked on. I saw it sitting there, and we walked by it. It had a little American flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God, this finally explains all the flying saucer stories. This is just an advanced fighter, and this is fucking hilarious.
Right.
So I went by, I slid my hand alongside it. I got reprimanded immediately for touching the thing. And there was a guy, an armed guard, that followed us in and just said, keep your eyes forward and your hands at your side and just walk in the door. So that was the first time I had seen anything that was weird. It was sometime later that I was introduced to my my lab partner, Barry. And we had some of the subcomponents of the craft in the lab. And Barry was very anxious to get a new lab partner. So he was very talkative and couldn't wait to show me different things. And it was in the demonstration of the reactor working where it caught my attention to where this is technology that doesn't even exist. So, I mean, that was the first time I knew that this is really something different.
What was it? What was it about this reactor that made you think that it didn't exist technologically?
Well, it was I actually have to back up because there were some briefings that I read before that you know, certainly gave me the impression that this was going to be a weird job, but this was the first hands-on thing. This was a small reactor about the size of a hemisphere, about the size of a basketball, on a metal plate, and when it was running, it produced a gravitational field of its own. Now, this is something that we can't do. We can't produce any gravity. The only way we get gravity is from large quantities of mass. But there's no machine we can have that turns on that makes gravity. Like, you know, you can turn on an electromagnet and it makes a magnetic field. We can't make a gravitational field. Anyway, this device was producing that. And Barry said, almost like he was bragging, go ahead, try and touch the sphere. And I couldn't. It pushed my hands away, just like two light poles of a magnet. So that was...
so like when you take two magnets and try to press them together and they push against each other?
Yeah, kind of cushion feeling, but you can't get them together. The closer you put them, the more they push. But
and you felt that physically
with my hand. Yeah. Now there's nothing. He's
doing it, Bob Lazar.
And that immediately caught my attention. Going, wow, this is something else.
What was your thought? Like when you felt that?
I've heard him tell the story several times before, and then I didn't know he was on Joe Rogan. I was listening to another episode of Joe Rogan,
the first day,
and Joe Rogan's keep talking about, Bob Lazar this and Bob Lazar that, and if you talk to the guy, he's really smart. I'm like, did you do an episode with Bob Lazar?
It was kind of an overview.
This was just 10 months ago.
This project was to back engineer the alien craft, and specifically, it was to try and back engineer and see if we can duplicate the technology with available materials. Now, to do this, they split the project into, you know, many different pieces for several reasons. They do this on all classified projects, so nobody has the complete story.
Compartmentalization.
They compartmentalize everything.
Exactly.
And we had the power and propulsion system. So what the briefings they gave me were like a 1 or 2 page overview of some of the other projects that were going on on the craft. The only reason they do that is just in case what you're working on is connected intimately in some way that we don't know of to one of the other projects. You have to know their, their existence. So, again, everything from metallurgy to, weapon potential of the craft, and these were all, essentially very short briefings, but mine was just power and propulsion, and it made it very clear that what I read was accurate.
So when you were reading that, before you actually saw the reactor, what were your thoughts on what they were describing? If you knew that something like that didn't exist, and they're describing it in the briefings, what did you think you were going to see?
I didn't know at the time. I mean, I was reading, I thought, is this some kind of test?
See if you're crazy?
Well, not to see if I'm crazy, a lot of times they'll take in real high security jobs. I mean, they'll intentionally insert nonsense into them, whether it's to confuse the fact or if for someone was to leak it out, they would carry that information along and know where it came from. So I read through the documents, but, I didn't know if this was, part of some kind of test or, or what, or was it potentially realistic? I mean, I really didn't consider it being all that possible as far as being the actual thing that I was going to work on at the time.
How did they turn it on?
The reactor?
Yeah.
The reactor can be turned on or turned off in a lot of different ways. The way Barry showed me, the hemisphere is removed. There's a small tower in the middle. When you put the hemisphere on, the reactor activates. The reactor shuts down. It's load sensing. So if there's no load on the reactor at all, it shuts down. When there's a load present on it, it starts up again.
Load meaning?
You can consider it an electrical load. So although it doesn't necessarily operate electrically, there's no wiring that connects any of the subcomponents together whatsoever. They just have to be in the immediate vicinity. The stuff is borderline magic, and that's essentially where we left it, when I left the project.
So there was no progress made?
There was some progress. I mean, we did identify, at least we think, some processes and had a rough idea, we think, of what was going on, but I think this is a problem that they've had for a long time. And, I was replacing somebody that Barry worked with prior to me, and I think there was some horrific accident that I didn't have a whole lot of information on, but, Barry alluded to that.
A horrific accident, like where someone died, or?
Yeah, where somebody died.
Because they were trying to tamper with things or figure out how something worked?
Yeah, the reactor in particular.
But yet he let you touch it.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to do was cut into one.
Oh,
now
Jesus.
they had more than one there, and that was supposedly there was an unannounced nuclear test, and that's what it was. At the time, remember, they were still doing underground nuclear tests at the test site. But from what I understand, according to Barry, there was an attempt made. Now, this must have been a pretty desperate attempt because it's not a very scientific process to analyze something that way. But it looked like they used a plasma cutter or something like that to cut into an operating reactor.
How many of these things did they have?
They had nine craft altogether. I only got hands-on with one of them, so I can't really say how the others operated.
Did you see the other ones?
Yeah, at one time, and only one time, the bay doors between the hangars were all open, and I could see all the way through.
And were they all exactly the same?
No, they were all different.
Different shapes?
Yeah.
But they were all from somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, did anyone make any attempt to explain or to tell you where they came from?
No one is the least bit interested in letting everybody know all the facts. They want to give you the minimum information that's necessary to complete your task. So you're not getting the story of where they came from. You're not getting the story of how much progress other people are making. You just focus on the small component.
But they gave you some indication that they've been working on these for a while?
Yeah.
When do you think they acquired these?
I really couldn't say. I think they've been around for a while.
So they bring you into this room. You see this reactor working. You realize this is nothing that, as far as like the scientific community at current time, has the ability to create.
We still don't.
What is your life like from that moment on? Is that where everything changes? Because I would imagine the moment you actually make contact with something that's extraterrestrial, whether it's an object or a being, something where you can actually absolutely be certain it's not from here, your whole paradigm, the whole world you live in, is now a different place.
Well, this is the only time it became exciting. You know, the rest of the time it was really an ominous feeling being at work. But at that time, it was exciting. I mean, now I knew we were on the absolute beyond the cutting edge of science. And I was so absolutely excited to be there every single time I was. You know, this was a fantastic opportunity. And however, in short order, it began to concern me. We really have no idea what we're talking about. And the excitement kind of turned to dread at some point, because the amount of power we're dealing with is astronomical. I mean, to affect gravity, to produce the effects like this equipment does, takes huge amounts of power. And I've given the example before of, you know, taking a small portable nuclear reactor and, you know, putting it back into Victorian times, you know, with the scientists of the time, and just dropping it in a room. They come and look at it and see that it's producing power and wonder how it works, so they start taking it apart. And as soon as they get some of the shielding off, the people are going to drop dead because of the radiation inside. Now, the people have no idea that radiation even exists back then. But anybody that comes in to check on them will also drop dead. And, you know, there's no reason that exact scenario couldn't happen with what we're dealing with. We have no idea how the physics operate within this thing. The power levels are, like I said, astronomical. Like, it's incredibly dangerous to tinker with something like that. And, you know, in some respects, we were guinea pigs, just trying to find out how to make this thing.
So they had a series, as far as you surmised, they had a series of different scientists try to back engineer this thing, try to figure out what this thing was, and they would bring in new people and like, let's throw a bomb at it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they
I don't know how many, but I knew there was certainly one before me, and I knew he died during the analysis of the reactor itself.
And you don't know how many have worked on it, and no one gave.
This could have been there for 50 years. It could have been there for 5 years.
But they're giving you instructions. What are they saying? Like when they're giving you direction, they're showing you all this stuff. Like what are they saying? What specifically? What are they asking of you?
Well, essentially what they ask is what I said. We are just to gather as much information as possible, find out how it operates, and see if we can duplicate it. So,
but they never told you where it was from. They never let you ask questions about where it's from.
Well, if the information I read in the briefings was accurate, now what I do have to say is the information that pertained directly to the reactor was accurate. What I read did jive with reality.
In terms of how?
In terms of how it was made, what we saw, how it operated, the materials, how it, you know, turned on, and what was discovered about it. I'm sorry, the migraine is really making it hard for me to think here.
Sorry, no, we talked that before the podcast. I should tell everybody Bob is getting a migraine. I know you're very stressed out by this. It's just one of the reasons why I appreciate you doing this.
Where was I already?
We're talking about
right,
the way you explained it.
And so there was some paperwork that indicated that this was from the Zeta Reticuli star system. Now, how they obtained that, I haven't the slightest idea. But it wasn't just from the Zeta Reticuli star system. It was what they called ZR3. So it was a third planet in that star system. So there was no other information about it other than that's supposedly where the crab came from. Now, is that true? I don't know. I have no way of verifying that. But that was printed in the same materials that referenced the reactor. Now, I looked that stuff up when I went home, And Zeta Reticuli is a binary star, 2 stars that orbit one another, and it's only visible in the southern hemisphere, and it's about 30 some odd light years away. So that's literally all the information I have about that. I don't know how they found out it came from there.
And you also probably have some suspicions that they give you some disinformation, like you were talking about before, where they would,
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever decided to talk about this, they added a bunch of nonsense to make whatever is factual look ridiculous.
Right. Or be able to trace it down. Like, okay, this fax came out, and this Lazar guy said it came from Zeta Reticuli, so they knew it was.
When you read Zeta Reticuli, were you like, what in the fuck is this?
Well, reading all of the stuff, it was, what in
Right.
the fuck is this?
You're like, why did I sign up for this? Like, what?
No, to me, this was cool. This
Right.
was interesting. I said, I was just excited to be out in a secure area, in the middle of the desert. I said,
Right.
this is awesome. I
How
love
old
it,
are you at the time?
I was in my 20s.
Yeah, so you're probably like, totally geeked out.
Oh yeah, this was great. I mean, I was excited. So I didn't care. I'm reading through everything, and
So you read through all the Zeta Reticuli thing, but then when you see the actual starship with the little American flag sticker on it,
Well,
I
that
think-
was
that later or before?
that was before.
So before. So you see the thing before, and you say, "Oh, this is
Wait,
American."
was that before?
Hard, so many years.
Yeah, I can't.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
The days have fused together. It's so hard to separate what happened in each visit to
Do you
the
remember
place.
the thought process when you read that it's from Zeta Reticuli?
Yeah, it didn't hit me like a ton of bricks or anything. It was just like, yeah, okay. And,
You think it was bullshit?
I don't know.
You just were
I
like,
don't. Now I don't. I mean, because when I
Right.
read it, I hadn't verified anything, and this was just a bunch of stuff I was reading, and I thought maybe after this they're just going to give me a test and see what I can remember in
Right.
crazy information, and
Right.
then it would. But like I said, when I finally went in with Barry, and had hands-on experience with what they were talking about, it took on a completely different meaning.
So there's a plate, there's this thing that looks like half a basketball, and when it's on, you can't come anywhere near it. You can't touch it.
Right.
How is, what is gravity about that? Like the concept of gravity, most people is gravity is bringing something towards it.
Right. Well, I guess you would say it's anti-gravity. It's gravity shifted 180 degrees. It's anti-gravity.
And did they have any understanding about what could possibly create this effect? Did they have any areas where they'd like you to look into?
No, they knew there was a fuel source in it, and they were proficient at making it work. And again, my analogy to something like this is you can drop a motorcycle off in the wagon train days and just leave it with the keys parked outside, somebody's place. Everybody will come around it and they'll poke and prod, and eventually they'll turn the key, get it to start, and become proficient at riding it.
Yeah.
But they won't be able to understand what the hell's going on. They won't be able to make the plastic fender, much less anything else. And I think that's exactly the state we were at. We played around with the parts long enough before I got there where they could make the reactor operate, take the fuel out and know that it makes it work. How exactly what was going on in the reactor remained a mystery at the time. I think we made some progress on what was going on inside, but I don't think anybody really knew anything. They could just watch what was going on and make note of it.
How long were you there?
I'd say about 6 months or so.
And what progress was made while you were there?
Well, we came up with a bunch of reasonably good ideas.
That's what I say all the time about, like, if something ever happens and we get reset and the world comes to an end and, like, the last survivors have to, like, restart and build over again, shit'll take forever, because I know how to drive a car pretty goddamn good. I have no idea how that motherfucker works. Not on an intricate level where I can fucking build a fucking car, or an engine, or a differential, or a fucking fuel injection, or any of that shit. You're like, and so, like he says, like, what if the technology they're looking at, like, there is no way to understand like the workings, but still kind of know how the shit functions a little bit. And this motherfucker says it came from space, but I don't think so. And listening to some of his older stuff, I'm not sure if he says, or if it was someone else who says that some of these craft, the older craft that they've been trying to reverse engineer for decades, came from Antarctica. And that's why they don't want anybody down there, because they know there's shit under the ice. But if that's the case, there's always the possible chance, once again, that it was just an ancient human civilization and they had like fucking cool ass technology and somehow they got wiped out or froze over or something. And everybody wanted to say, oh, it's alien technology, but is it really alien though? Did it really come from another place? He's talking about all these other star systems and stuff. But who knows? Bob Lazar said he knows because he worked at Area 51.
Is about how the reactor worked. And one of them was the square base of it was essentially like a cyclotron, which is a small particle accelerator, a circular one. Particle accelerators, linear particle accelerators, are just a, long tube essentially, and they accelerate particles with high voltage and, radio frequencies till they reach high speeds. But a cyclotron does that in a small circular area. And there's this very heavy element fuel, element 115, something that wasn't on our periodic charts at the time.
But it is now.
It is now, yeah.
When did it become on the periodic table now, the way the chart's now?
I don't remember. Do you remember when they...
2004, Darmstadt, Germany, I think, is where they first fabricated 4 atoms. They lasted 220 milliseconds with the atoms. It's nothing, right? And then it later was discovered a couple more times they could fabricate it. Then they gave it a place then on the periodic chart. After that, called it moscovium.
So they told you about this stuff in 1982?
Yeah, well,
No,
we
not
kind of...
1982.
What year was this?
It was 88 and 89 when I was there.
Oh,
82 is when
82 was
I
when
was
you were
at
in
Los Alamos.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So 88, 89, they told you about this stuff. So this was not like...
No, they didn't tell me about it. That's one of the things that this group came up with. The God, I keep losing my train of thought with this thing.
So this one area, this element 115 was the fuel.
Yeah, it was the fuel.
The world will forgive you for having a migraine.
It's really hard to think through this. Just give me a minute.
We'll just give you more
I just want to say one. Yeah, definitely. I was going to say one thing. Bob, for the last 30 years, people have just been on the attack on Bob. Getting to know him, the personal effects on his life. It's really hard to understand unless you meet his family and his wife. I mean, this is the last thing he wanted to fucking do, was have to talk.
Yeah, we should explain that, Jeremy. That you and I had this conversation. I watched your documentary. We had this conversation, and I said, I have to talk to him.
Yeah.
The document, there's been detractors. There's been a bunch of people that called bullshit on many of the things that you've said, but over time, many of the things that you talked about, even in the 80s, have proven to be true. Things that people said were not true were proven to be true. Element 115 was one of them, right?
Right. Element 115, the fuel they had, was stable. In other words, it didn't decay. It wasn't emitting radioactivity. When they synthesized the 2 or 3 atoms of the 115, it did decay, and it was not a stable element. So they're kind of 2 different things. But this is kind of typical. Elements always have, or pretty much always have, stable isotopes and unstable isotopes. Like I think cesium has like 30 unstable isotopes to it. So, hydrogen, for example, you're familiar with hydrogen gas. It's stable, it's not radioactive. But there's also 2 other types of hydrogen, deuterium and tritium. And deuterium isn't radioactive, it's another stable isotope of hydrogen, but tritium is radioactive. Now they're all hydrogen. but they just have different amounts of neutrons. So it's the same thing with other elements and element 115. Depending on the amount of neutrons it has, designates the isotope, but it's 115. They will continue to take or experiment and try and make 115 at different isotopes, and I'm sure eventually they'll come up with a stable version, but it's the stable version that has the properties that we're talking about.
So they somehow or another had acquired a stable version. Did they say that the stable version had come with this craft?
Yeah, it absolutely came with the craft, yeah.
So at the time, you having a firm knowledge of the periodic chart and knowing what was real and what wasn't real, what was your reaction to having this stable element 115 that wasn't even supposed to exist?
Well, everything was impossible.
Right.
I mean, down to the metal. I did get a chance to look inside the craft on only one occasion, and this was important because where the reactor sat might have been critical to how it operated, since everything operates without any interconnection, so the placement of components might be critical. So they allowed me to go inside and look at it. Again, I forgot where the hell I am.
So you're going into this craft, and what are you thinking when you're inside of it? Like, what are you seeing?
It's a very ominous feeling, because there are no, first of all, everything is one color. It's like a dark pewter color, and there are no right angles anywhere. It's as if somebody took, I've said this before, somebody took a model and fashioned it out of wax and then heated it just for a short time so everything melted. Everything looks like it's fused together. Everything has a radius of curvature where two items meet. It's a really weird looking thing. But there was almost nothing other than a small foldable hatchway that looked recognizable. Everything was really unworldly, to pick a way to describe it.
So you get inside this thing, and it's designed for something that's much smaller than a human being.
Yeah, you can't really stand up till you get to the very center of it.
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
And what do you think this was designed for?
I'd say something close to half my height.
Wow. So these little 3-foot tallish creatures.
Yeah, and the seats were small too. I mean, obviously it was made, for something small. But there is no, there's nothing else in there. There's just seats, the reactor, and some of the subcomponents. There's no control panels. There's no bathroom. There's no decorative components or artwork or anything that you would recognize or trim. I mean, it's just a very bare bones thing.
You're not seeing any screens?
Well, there are archways around it that are part of the superstructure, and that one of the archways can become transparent. When I was in there, there was another group working on one of the archways, and you could call that a screen.
Through that archway, it would maintain the solidity, the solid, whatever metal it was.
Yeah.
But you could see
Yeah, it just
through
became transparent. Yeah. I saw that happen once or twice before I left.
Did you ask any questions about what the fuck?
No, there's no asking questions.
There's no asking questions.
No.
But when you watch something become transparent, and you realize it's still there, but you can now see through it.
Yeah, I mean, now that's not that impressive. We do have some liquid crystal materials that are like
Not
that.
impressive.
They
I've
have
seen that in
smart
bathrooms.
glass. Yeah, they call it smart glass. So this is just, and I don't know if the craft is made of, an advanced metal or a ceramic. It was cold to the touch, so I would lean more towards a metal.
You're not allowed to ask questions.
No, they work on the buddy system, so I can only exchange ideas and talk to Barry. Now this really interferes with science, because science is based on free discussion. And ideally you get a bunch of guys together, exchange ideas, work on problems, and that's how things move forward. But they're so over the top concerned about security, they split everything off and everybody becomes stagnant. It just destroys any of the progress you can make, or at least makes
Which is probably why they arrived at this bottleneck that they need to get this madman with a jet-powered Honda come in and see what he could do?
I think that was an act of desperation. I think they wanted someone that thinks out of the box and let's just give this guy a try here, because
Right.
they weren't, and they might have done this 4 more times since up to the point in time today, assuming they're still working on this thing.
And when you see this craft and you're inside, was there any indication that there was an area that they would use to control it, to pilot? Was there a pilot seat? Was there?
There were 3 seats. They sat around, the reactor was in the dead center of it, and then equidistant around there were 3 seats.
So
And that's all. There was a large, they're not consoles, they're large rectangular objects, also spaced equidistant around the center. There's nothing on them, there's no buttons, there's no lights, there's
and
no
they look
control.
the same color, the same.
Everything
thing.
is the same
It's
color.
just a different shape.
Right. And directly underneath them, there's 3 levels in the craft. The main level is what we're talking about. Directly under that, those are the gravity amplifiers, the big rectangular objects. Underneath them are the gravity emitters that look like, for lack of a better word, a trash can hanging on a pipe. 3 of those. And then the top layer, this is just my personal belief, I think that has to do with a navigation or their version of a computer with some planar panels, sensor panels around the craft that we would call portholes, but they're not portholes, they're just black areas. And I think that just determines its position in space. But I physically was in the center section, and I stuck my torso in the bottom section and hung upside down so I could see how the gravity amplifiers were positioned.
What is the roughly the size of this thing?
I don't remember from being there, but after all this stuff was over, I had John Andrews, a guy from the Testers Model Corporation, and we sat down and tried to figure out from what I saw and known sizes of things, and we came up with 52 feet in diameter. And
So
I
it's
think
fairly,
that's
fairly small.
Yeah, so I think that's a reasonable guess.
Now you said there's 9 of them, and you got a brief glimpse at the other ones. How are they different?
Oh, they mold, and it looked like a classic Jello mold with the rippled sides to it. One was a very flat disc, like like a straw hat or something like that. That was sitting up on its edge, and the thin part of it looked like a projectile had been fired through the edge of it. So I don't know if they were attempting to see if the metal could be penetrated, or if that's where the thing came from. Maybe it was shot down. But that was the only one where I saw there was, actual physical damage to it.
And that one was roughly the same size? They're all...
They were kind of too far away to tell.
And there was several teams that were working on the propulsion system, so there was different teams that were working on these different aircrafts?
I don't know. I could only assume.
Right. Now, when you're sitting in this thing and you're looking at this otherworldly craft, your goal is to try to figure out how this thing functions. Your goal is to try to figure out how this reactor, you would imagine they would give you more time than just one day to check that out.
Oh, it wasn't one day.
Right.
Yeah, Barry was there. I think Barry was sleeping there. I'm sure they had, that isn't weird. Up at the Tonopah test range where they work on stealth fighters, you go, I think, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and you stay up there too. So it's not weird to stay up at the test site.
Right.
So, I think he pretty much, and he acted like he's been up there for a long time.
Yeah.
But
he's still there.
Yeah, who knows?
Do you have contact with this guy?
No. Oh no. I wish I did. I kind of thought he was going to come out after I did.
Right.
And I think I took so much flack and it's so much shit for what went on. I think I wound up helping security there, and everybody became afraid of, doing or saying anything after that.
So what kind of reports did you have to give? So you're not making much progress, right? You're just trying to figure out what this thing is, and it seems impossible.
Well, we didn't personally make them. We were always, there was never a lot of information that we gained. The guy, you would call him our supervisor, his name was Dennis Mariani, and kind of a military-looking guy. And he would routinely pop in, during the day and, hey, what's going on, guys? And he would essentially relay any information, anything new we came up with. I mean, he was our go-between, where we presented him the information, then he took it to wherever they were, assembling all the data from everybody.
Now, I assume you're working normal days, like an 8-hour day?
No.
No?
No, it was really weird that I would be only called in on certain times and certain days. And they would be weird hours, too. Most of the time was later in the evening. I mean, I can get a call at 11 o'clock at night, and they'll say, it's now 11 o'clock. By 11:45, you need to be at the McCarran Terminal, and, we'll let you know when we have more information.
But what did you do while you were there? If you're looking at this object, this reactor, and you can't figure out what it is or how it works, other than the fact that it works on this element that you don't even know about.
Sure. I mean, the thing was what you do with anything. If you're trying to analyze it, all you can do is perform tests. And all we did is try and come up with every kind of test we possibly could. I mean, we tested, it violated a lot of what we thought was impossible to violate. I mean, one of the first laws of thermodynamics, I mean, essentially, any machine, any device that operates always makes extra heat. Nothing works at 100% efficient. Even the headphones you're wearing, anything that takes power, some of that power is going to be converted to infrared images you've seen. But it never got, no matter what the load was on the reactor, it never got above the ambient temperature, which is impossible. I mean, you're, pulling out huge amounts of power, and nothing ever gets warm. We tried measuring magnetic fields, and there was nothing there. So we started playing around with the emission from the emitters, the gravity wave itself, and saw what we could do with it and how it was focused. So we really spent all our time just trying to see what the stuff can do and what we can control.
So you were seeing what it could do, but you couldn't ever figure out how it was doing it.
No, not really. I mean, we really could only use or come up with a best guess. Now, I can't say that I could absolutely state for certainty how anything actually worked.
Now, how did you know at all how they were piloting it? Because they were doing some tests where they're having these things fly around in the sky. And this is what gets us deeper into your story.
Right. I was out there for one test. Right. In fact, I was with Barry in the lab, and Dennis came in and said, we're about to run a test. Why don't you guys come out? Or I think he said, Barry, why don't you come out here and bring Bob with you? We went out there, and the craft was already outside the hangar and was just preparing to lift off. Now, they were in communication with somebody in the craft.
So there was a person in the craft?
Yeah, there was certainly a person in there. Now, it's not a comfortable place to be in.
Like the scene in the show we was
so the
watching?
guy has to be sitting
when
on
they had
the
the
floor
guy
in the middle, my best guess.
And this is the same specific...
And the guy in the...
Yeah, that was...
Because you were the
And the pilot was like, I don't want to do this. Don't make me go in there. And they told him he had to try to fly that shit.
It quietly lifted
And
off
that's
the
what he
ground,
said.
which
It's like,
was
yo, whatever it
incredibly
was, you can tell they were talking to somebody inside the shit.
Yeah, I keep saying that they confirm
well,
that UFOs are
quietly,
real.
because
they
it
keep showing footages.
it produced a little corona discharge from the bottom. A corona discharge is kind of a high voltage brush, little bluish glow discharge. As it was lifting off the ground, you can hear a slight hiss sound. And as soon as it cleared the ground by about 5 or 10 feet, maybe even less than that, the hissing stopped and the blue glow disappeared. So it lifted off quietly, and then it hovered silently, if you want to be specific.
Wow. So then what kind of maneuvers was it doing?
It took off, for that particular time, it took off, moved a little around to the left and right, and then sat back down. The craft itself they communicated with it with because I saw the guy talking in a regular VHF radio to the person in the craft. And I even saw the frequency that was on the frequency counter of the communication, the transceiver there. But what's weird is he shouldn't be able to communicate with the craft with a radio. The radio wave should bend around the craft. I mean, it shouldn't be possible. Every single thing about the craft and the way they operated didn't make any sense to us. I mean, that's something we talked about for a while after.
Why should the frequency bend around the craft?
Well, you really have to look at the way the gravity wave comes out of the craft. There's the reactor's in the center.
He says
and
he worked on that shit back in the
goes
day.
up to the top.
In the
There's
80s.
actually a small appendage that sticks out of the top of the craft.
He's been telling
and
the
it
same
produces
story
a
for
heart-shaped gravitational
30 years now.
distortion around the craft.
They're
Now, if the
not
craft
doing
is
anything about it?
sitting in the
They're
air
not doing
and
nothing
you
about it
walk
to him?
underneath it
They
and
don't
look
care that
up,
he's speaking out?
you actually
They tried to discredit
cannot
him over
see
the years,
craft.
erase
The
some of
light
his
bends
history,
around
erase
it.
some of his
You're bending gravity,
credentials,
bends light.
erased
It
his
bends radio
job to
waves.
make him seem like he's a
It's,
nobody. And he's making all this shit up.
Possible.
Like,
to
I worked at
communicate
this
with a
place,
craft
and then
that has
people
an
try to
envelope
find
around
proof
it
that he worked there,
that's
and it's like, you
distorted
never
all
worked
forms
there.
of energy.
He's like, yo, they
But
deleted it. Like,
they
oh,
were
nigga, you
apparently
sound
in
crazy.
contact.
But I have proof
Somehow or
that it
another,
worked.
through some unexplained way that they
Yeah.
didn't bother explaining to you. So this thing gets up, it just does some very simple maneuvers, left, right, goes down. And did they discuss it? They wanted you to see it.
No, they just
All right,
wanted
guys, I'm
no,
probably about to wrap this
they
up
didn't
soon.
discuss anything with me.
I gotta go
It sat-
cook some
It
dinner.
sat
I'm
down,
hungry
we
as
looked
shit.
around for a bit, and Barry said, let's go back. We went back in the lab. All we got to do was see it. Yeah, fast forward
Coming together.
to some months later, I did have the test flight schedule of the craft. Now, they had times they had designated high performance tests. This obviously wasn't one that was a high performance test. The high performance test goes above the mountain range, and they do much more radical moves with the thing. Look, this is a prized item, and they're not doing anything like taking it out of the atmosphere or flying around to other countries or anything like
Right.
that. They just play with this thing right over the test site. But they were doing some radical moves with it. And since I had the test flight schedule, statistically, the amount of traffic in the surrounding areas on the highway was lowest on Wednesdays. And that's why Dennis told us that all the test flights occurred only on Wednesdays, because it'd be the least chance that anyone would see what's going on.
And this was before the government had expanded the forbidden territory around Area 51 and Papoose Lake and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that occurred after my story came out. Then people started going up on the mountaintop and trying to look down into there, and they kind of freaked out and then did the land grab and pushed everybody back. But yeah, I think all that occurred long after that came out.
So you're working there, and while you're working there, you're under these
What the
crazy
knife
schedules.
is? I can't find it. There's a
Forgive me
black knife
for
missing.
explaining the story, but you would get these phone calls. You would have to go to the airport at 11 p.m. And your wife started
I didn't
thinking
give you
you were
one.
having an affair.
Where it
Yeah,
is.
apparently so. Now, I did give my permission to have, as part of the, security clearance process, I gave written permission to have the phones monitored and things of that sort. So they weren't doing any covert stuff. They, with any Q clearance, which is civilian top secret clearance or military top secret clearance, they go talk to friends and, places you've been, make sure you're not connected to foreign countries, but, monitoring your phone is nothing unusual. However, they insisted that, you don't even talk to your loved one, to your partner, to your wife, whatever, about what's going on. So she was essentially in the dark and didn't know the phone was being monitored. Well, part of the security clearance is that not only do you not have any connections to foreign countries and aren't a maniac, but you have to have a stable home life too. She started having an affair with a flight instructor. Now, they were monitoring this on the phone, and they knew it, and I didn't. So they stopped me coming in, and their attitude at the time was, we need to see how this is going to play out, and if Lazar is going to get a little weird or anything. So let's just, hold him off from coming in and, see what happens.
And they explained this to you, what was happening?
Well, after the fact, yeah, because time kind of went on, and there were guys that were following me around, and I started getting a little concerned, going, well, shit, are they booting me out of the project? And if so, they're not just going to let me hang out at home and go get a new job knowing what I know. So as time went on, I started getting a little concerned, and I took my closest friends and just kind of got together and I said, hey, remember that job I told you about? This is what's going on. And you don't need to take my word for it. Wednesday night, we need to all go out here. I want to show you what's going on. So I took everybody and we went out to, remember, since I had the test flight schedule, and went outside the base, out into the desert. And so everybody could see, one of the high performance tests. And, left quite an imprint.
All right, guys, let me go fix some dinner. I'm hungry. Yo, appreciate y'all chilling with me in the studio, checking out the progress on these portraits. I'll get with y'all next time. Peace.